welcome to the Aristocrats Soccer Podcast, the elite soccer podcast and all of soccer podcasting and podcasting in general. This is David Harris here with two co-hosts. We have first Marion Cole, our analyst. Marion, how are you this afternoon?
I'm good, Dave. What's going on, man?
Rocking it out here this afternoon, getting ready to interview big guests. And Jake, we can't forget about Jake Egan, live from Peru. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just vacationing, putting my feet up. Got a session in earlier, and now I'm ready for this podcast.
Awesome. We have our special elite guest is Jordan DiBiasi, not to be confused with the wrestler of the same name, which I read about online.
That's my uncle, actually.
He's your uncle, right?
Crazy. Yeah.
And if you believe that, Jordan's got a few more she'll tell you. Jordan is a midfielder from the Washington Spirit of the NWSL. And Jordan, you're joining us from out and about. You're on the road, traveling the country, promoting the Washington Spirit, I see.
Yeah, something along those lines, I guess. Or maybe I just got my timing a little off. So the beauty of COVID is that you can do stuff from your car now. These virtual meetings, man.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and making the time to come on this afternoon. Really excited to have you on.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So where were you as you just got on the call? What did you just get finished up doing?
I was at physical therapy. And thank goodness my physical therapist is just the GOAT. And so she's like, yeah, go do it. You can come back later. But I had just hit 50 soccer balls against the wall.
Little things.
That's exciting. Those small steps as you're coming back from rehabbing an injury as you are, those small steps are big. I won't admit that I've ever been there, but I may have been there in the past.
Oh yeah. It was funny story. So this is probably like my fourth time touching a soccer ball. The first time my PT surprised me when I was 10 weeks out, and like every day I'm in there 4 times a week. I'm like, can we do soccer? And she's like, no. And then for whatever reason, I hadn't asked that day, and she goes, oh, I have a surprise for you. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then she told me it and let me hit it against the wall. I was like, this is the best day ever.
Wow. Marion, you must have some questions for Jordan, so please.
Well, I didn't know that Jordan, you can totally just be like, I really don't want to talk about it, but you had mentioned you had surgery. So what are you recovering from? Tell the people, if you don't mind.
That's a good question. So I tore my labrum, and I had labral repair surgery. And let's see, I hurt myself in July. I had surgery at the beginning of October. And so I'm almost 3 months out, and I'm hoping to be back by the beginning of this coming NWSL season. I'm just starting touching a soccer ball, like basic touches. And then hopefully we'll start to jog and whatnot come the new year. Things will start to progress.
Exciting. That's so exciting.
Jordan, the way things are going with the pandemic, don't worry about it. You'll be back at the beginning of the season. We don't know when that'll be. Anywhere. Don't rush to come back.
So before you picked up that injury, it was good timing, as Dave is alluding to. But before you picked up that injury, you guys had the Challenge Cup, which you did play a few games in. So walk us through that experience, being in kind of an isolation in playing a tournament for a month, and then also kind of what was the beginning parts of 2020 like for you?
Yeah, that was a lot. Let's see. I guess I'll start at the beginning. So the 2020 was a weird one. I like so many highs, so many lows. I started 2020. I got called in with the full team for the She Believes training camp, which was such a cool experience. I was on such a high, ready to get after it, feeling so good and excited for the season. And then our team headed to Florida for preseason. And on day one, everything shut down. Canceled trainings. We were in Florida and we couldn't train together, and it was just a wild time. It was really cool, special that we could still be together. And it's obviously bigger than soccer, but For someone like me who was like so excited, had such high goals and standards and expectations for the season, I was definitely a little disappointed initially. And so it's kind of like this regrouping and redefining maybe my immediate short-term goals. And so from March until May, I don't think we had any team coordinated trainings. We were all on our own, and the Spirit did a good job of like sending out ideas or whatnot that we could be doing by ourselves. And I was lucky I had a roommate on the team, and so Tegan and I would go out and train. And kind of like my goals was just like, okay, kind of like off season, I'm gonna try to push myself and improve in these areas. And so I kind of had targets in that, and still was like coming off the high of camp and just so excited for the season. And we didn't know when the season was going to be, so you just always wanted to be on and make sure you were fit and you would be ready when the time came. And then I think we started training in May with the rumor of a tournament coming, but like no real foundation. So then when it got announced, we were all really excited. And I know I had spoken to other team friends throughout the league, and everyone was excited to go. I didn't really know what to expect of like the bubble and whatnot. I was like, oh, like we're kind of already in that now. It's probably will be similar. But then we went there and it was awesome. We got to play soccer, like so grateful. It was definitely hard and challenging to be in that bubble and like so be kind of like you had to stay in the hotel, you had to stay on your floor, limited. You couldn't really see your friends on other teams. And so that like was definitely trying, and it was a hard time to just like navigate and get used to like what the new norm would be for that month. But given like the NWSL did such a great job, and safety is number one. So, and thankfully everyone was safe throughout the whole month. I think our team, we tried to find different ways to kind of like stay upbeat, to stay busy, and to kind of like come together and make sure the camaraderie was still really strong. One of them was we would get crumble cookies like every week. I don't know if you guys know what those are. They like change the flavors every week. And like now to this day, we still like text each other, oh my gosh, did you see the flavors this week? And I'm at home recovering and rehabbing right now, and there's a crumble nearby. And so like go and taste test sometimes. We're like, guys, this one's really good. But it kind of became our thing, which was really fun. And then just playing games or whatnot and trying to just stay busy and stay upbeat and positive. The games were awesome. It was just so nice to be able to compete. That was when I hurt myself. So I think like soccer wise, I definitely was like disappointed with like my personal experience. That you never wish an injury on anyone. But I was really grateful and thankful to be there at the team, to be able to play the minutes and play the soccer I was able to do, and then to support the team. And just to see kind of like all our hard work and everything we did in the off season and the quarantine kind of pay off and be showcased and like on camera and whatnot, and for others to see and against a real live competition.
I have a bit of a twofold question. I know for our guys at Greenville, I work for a USL League One team, and one of the things that all of them kind of talked about was how, mentally draining it was. You mentioned it. You go in your normal off season, and then you have the anticipation that you're going to start the season at X time. Then you don't. So you're kind of back in this like weird preseason-ish, off-season-ish kind of energy and vibe. So how I know that they felt like the small group training, and Jake, you can probably attest to it, like was one thing that really made them successful throughout the season was this kind of added extended emphasis on small group training. So my kind of twofold question is, how do you feel like that part of things helped you individually as a player? And then we talked with Gabby Seiler not too long ago, and, she felt that the kind of bubble made their team a lot closer. So, not only how did you feel like this kind of weird off-season, extended preseason helped you individually, but also how do you feel like that bubble kind of helped the women's game, women's teams grow stronger just in general?
Oh, those are two very good questions. The small group, I'll start with that. So what I really love about soccer and just anything, like give me a ball, give me two players, and I'm going to go play 1v1. I'll go play 2v2 small goals anywhere. I'd play on the side of the hill. And so I'm like the biggest fan of small group training, like more touches, yay, more fun. So I loved it. We would play small goals when we could, and when it was allowed in these small training sessions, and we'd have music going, and it was just, I really enjoyed that part. And I think that like creating this really fun but competitive environment brought our team closer together too, and that paid off in the bubble. And then fast forward to the bubble, like that was our family. Like, I mean, in during the pandemic, like you can't just like travel freely and whatnot as maybe like it would be like considered normal. And so it's like none of us had seen our family who would typically come out and travel and watch games and like be our fans. We hadn't seen those, our loved ones, our close friends outside of soccer. And so really it was like the spirit was your family. And so we really relied on each other through the highs, through the lows of the tournament. And then more broadly, like no one else could experience or like had the same experience as the bubble than the teams that were there. And so I think that's what brought us all closer, like the different challenges of, okay, we like can't really go out, we have to stay on our floor, how are we staying busy, whatnot. It brought the league and like all the girls within the teams a lot closer too, to have that shared experience.
Do you think that just being in the US, there's so much travel normally, especially the way we fly, and I'm sure you fly too, is very middle seats, commercial, not exactly private. Do you think that playing in that bubble and having the same hotel room, I'm sure it was like a short walk or drive to the field, do you think that raised the level of play? Do you think it was too much because of the altitude in the area? How do you think it affected the overall quality?
That's a good question too. I don't know. I think obviously the altitude affected players. And because of the circumstances, you didn't really want to go out too early because of the bubble and just the different elements with COVID. And so you kind of jumped in and you started playing right away. And that kind of stuff's really out of your control, And so I think every player did such a good job, and coaches, everyone like managing their players managing themselves, to be able to give their best and to control what they could for the tournament. I thought it was an awesome tournament. I thought the quality was really high. I didn't know what to expect. I knew our team, and I thought we were prepared. We looked good and we were ready. And I thought we fell short. We wanted to do more, obviously, but I thought we played some good soccer. And I thought the same of every team. I didn't know what to expect, and I was so impressed. And I was excited to see how everyone was able to still work hard given all the crazy circumstances and be able to perform and play some quality soccer.
One thing that I thought the NWSL did such a good job of is really kind of seizing the opportunity. You don't really want to call COVID an opportunity, but NWSL was the first league playing back. And so Gabby and I were talking about how it was still frustrating that you had to pay for certain games or, it wasn't on like the primary channels. But at the end of the day, I feel like there was definitely a heightened awareness of NWSL soccer being that first league back. How do you feel like NWSL can carry that momentum going forward?
Yeah, that's a good. I actually just saw some stat that said, I don't want to misquote it, something along the lines of like NWSL being like most tweeted about or something on like Twitter or like some stat like that. I'd have to go back and find it. But I was super excited to see that, like as far as different sports leagues. As far as carrying it, I think they're moving everything in the right direction. I've heard talks about just continuing to put women's soccer on those big time channels that are accessible for everyone. I think what's been really exciting is just I had friends and family who maybe like hadn't ever really, even like high school friends who I'm like, they never were like big soccer fans or anything. They're reaching out being like, hey, I watched your team play. Hey, saw you play. I'm like, what? So that's really exciting. And I think it's just trending in such a right direction. And I'm really excited to see what the NWSL is doing to continue that.
One question I had was like the timing with the injury, like the sort of unfortunateness of it, because then as you get into the fall, Rose Lavelle goes off to City, and I know I'd read anyway that you'd been sort of competing, and trying to get playing time, and here's this huge opening in the midfield for you, if you're healthy and ready to go. step in full 90, just more of a real opportunity for you to put a stamp on the team and yourself. Did you look at that as a missed opportunity, or just, was it extra frustration, or not really affecting you that much?
I love Rose, and I love playing with her. Her and Andy playing midfield, or anyone on our team playing in midfield with them. I have so much fun. She's so talented, as everyone knows. So it's really fun. I loved playing with her. I was so sad to see her leave, but I'm excited for her and for opportunity at Man City. I think more than anything, the injury is really hard because I want to be on the field. I want to be able to compete, to play, to touch a soccer ball, and to be sidelined without like much progress. Like I tried to kind of rehab it without surgery, and I wasn't really going anywhere. That was tough. And so definitely like from July to October, it was a hard time for me. But now I'm like really excited. Everything's looking up. My rehab's going well. So I'm all eyes on 2021.
That's great.
For those that maybe don't watch you regularly, I mean, hopefully all of our loyal viewers watch the NWSL, but for those that don't, how would you kind of describe your strengths as a player and what you're trying to do when you step onto the field? And then also when you have an injury, it's kind of like a reset button in a sense, and you don't want it, but at the same time, it gives you a lot of time to focus on. We don't have to share your weaknesses today. We don't want to give too much away, but what is something that maybe you're adding to your game for 2021 that you don't think you had in the past?
Yeah, those are great questions.
We're doing great, guys.
Okay.
Every time she says the great questions.
Well, you're making me really think. I'm like, usually it's like, what's your favorite color? I'm like, oh.
What is your favorite color?
What is your favorite color?
I don't know if you can tell. Bad lighting. But pink.
Oh yeah, okay.
But I'm a sucker for pink. Okay. First question was my strengths as a soccer player.
Yeah. How would you describe, like, when you step out on the field? How would you describe yourself?
I pride myself on my technical ability. It's something that's just been rooted in me since day one, thankfully, through my club and through my college and now professionally. I'm really thankful for that. And so when I step up on the field, I just rely heavily on my technical ability and my vision of the field and the relationships I have with players, and knowing kind of like their strengths, their weaknesses, and what their preferences are, and trying to be able to deliver and give those key passes or whatnot, and kind of help with the rhythm, possession, whatnot of the team. And then obviously to score goals, create chances for us to help us win. I think as far as what I could work on, and what's been really awesome is that I mean, to some extent, I haven't really been able to do it yet because of where I'm at in my PT and my rehab return to play. But I really want to focus on the strength piece and kind of like the physical side of the game as I get back. And just working on kind of like fixing any asymmetries or whatnot that I have to get stronger and a really good base, to get really fit because I haven't been able to do a lot. Those are my big focuses. Obviously, like as I'm able to do more soccer stuff, kind of reevaluate, see where I'm at and see what I need to improve on. I think what's been really great and an awesome opportunity during my injury is to be able to watch a lot of soccer and to kind of watch different players, watch different games, see their strategies, see what they're seeing, and kind of take note of that, so that once I'm able to play again, I can try to implement that into my game too.
Sorry, one more follow-up question, then you can go, Marion. When you say you watch a lot of soccer, it is something that always interests me from the female perspective, because obviously when I say I watch a lot of soccer, I watch a lot of men's soccer. I do watch women's soccer as well, but as a women's player that watches a lot of games and is trying to learn things, do you focus more on the women's game, or does it not really matter? Both gender works great.
I would say I watch both. I like recently what I've been doing is I do my biking, and so I'll just put on a game and I'll watch the game while I'm biking. And so for those games, like they're at weird odd hours, so I'll just go through like CBS, NBC Sports, whatnot, and try to watch replays. So that's like sometimes I'm watching like girls games from way back, boys games from way back, like a lot of them, maybe like EPL from earlier in the week, Champions League, whatnot. And then obviously on the weekends or whatnot, watching EPL. So I would say probably like 50-50, or maybe a little more men's than women's. But I'm not like set on one or the other. I really just want to watch soccer and watch some good soccer being played and see how I can improve my game.
And as a midfielder, you were talking about that, that you pride yourself in really knowing your players, knowing their strengths and weaknesses. And that's something I feel like when players are going from that gap of average or good to being next level, it's little things like that that really kind of separate them. So what would you tell, the college players, the high school players that are kind of on that cusp of, I want to shoot for the national team, I want to shoot for the NWSL team. What would you tell them ways to improve that side of their game? Understanding players, understanding just the game itself. Is it watching soccer? Is it playing with different people? What would you tell them?
I think like anything you can do to help yourself or to help your team is a win. I think like the relationships and whatnot are really key in soccer. And I think sometimes when you're like, I want to do this, you like turn it all to yourself. But really, I think some of the best players are the ones that make those around them look really good. And so maybe recognizing that. And I think just when I think of like the success of the teams I've had, the most successful teams I've been on, have been like also when I felt like I've been playing some of my best soccer, and when we've been winning a lot of games. So I think that piece and like why a big part of like the soccer team is like the culture is because how you are off the field and your understanding of your players and what they want or what not will then carry over and help and kind of determine the success of your team on the field too.
I'm glad you said that, because that was going to be my follow-up question was, how much of that do you think is really just a mental shift from the individual player to not be so focused on only what they can do, what he can do, what she can do, and how much of it do you think is really that off-field culture, or how much of it because I would feel Jake and I we got into this last time. I feel like the men's game would be more so like they can turn it on and off the field, no problem. I feel like the women's game is way more localized to everything that they do off the field, team culture, how they bond. It totally replicates to how people play on the field in the women's game, especially.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's probably like an individual basis. I find that like when I put my heart and soul into something, it's kind of like I do it all the time. I can't really like turn it off. But that might just be me. Some players I feel like can probably be like, hey, awesome on the field when I leave, like, see ya, like I'll be nice, but like we don't have to be best friends. So it's probably really dependent on the person. But I never really thought about that actually.
Yeah, it's in it. Go on, Dave.
Yeah, I was just saying one thing I was curious about was just maybe if you could talk a little bit about what it's like playing in Washington for the Spirit, the feedback from the community, from the supporters, any kind of cool interactions you've had with the fans, and the love you feel from the supporters, and getting recognized as a player in Washington D.C., things like that.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I've loved it. I've actually never really been on the East Coast until I was drafted by the Spirit. So I really loved my time and my experiences and memories in DC. I think so we ended my rookie year 2 years ago off on such a high. We had sold out Audi Field. You could just feel the like excitement of the Spirit kind of in the community. And so we were really excited, wanted to carry that into this past year. And then obviously COVID hit, and it's like, oh man, like no games at Audi. We're going to play more games there, more games at Segra, and just continue that fan base and that support. And so what was cool is I thought the Spirit did a really good job of trying to keep that energy going. We did like a lot of Zoom calls with teams and kids, which was fun, but you obviously can't replicate the environment of playing a game with a sold out audience around you. And so I think we're all really excited for that for next season, and to see kind of like how it all plays out. Hopefully we can have fans again. And yeah, so something that actually I've been talking with our community relations person is the potential of getting even more involved. Like I think we've done a great job with the community, but I've been just recently kind of working with the school, Cornerstone Schools of DC, and something we've talked with them about and whatnot is introducing young girls to soccer, because a lot of them just don't even like really know or have ever had any exposure to it. So something that we're kind of in the talking part about is hosting a camp in the summer for girls in the community in DC. I think that's obviously going to be pending COVID and whatnot. So we haven't really been able to set anything down. But I'm excited about the opportunity. I'm really hopeful that we'll be able to make it happen.
That's great.
What was the jump like? Go ahead, Jake.
No, you go first.
Ladies first.
Ladies first.
I was just gonna ask, what the jump was like, in all honesty, what the jump was like from Stanford to professional ranks. I remember I was on a brief trial with the Spirit for this was probably 2 years ago, I think. I played growing up with Jane Campbell, and was she
Did we
there
go
when
to a camp together?
I think so. I
was like, yeah. I swear. Okay, that's so funny.
That was when,
last name's different. Are you married?
Yeah, I got married.
Oh my gosh, congrats.
Thank you. I still haven't legally changed my name, but yeah. Yeah, and I remember I was just like, I wonder if I was like, I can't remember if we were the same age or if you were the year younger than me.
I might have been young, but I swear we were at the same camp. I was like, I remember. You're hilarious. I remember. It was so much fun.
Well, because I was looking at all your stuff, and I was like, I think we went to like a youth national camp too with like Rose and Andy and some of those girls. But like I know personally for me, it was going from Georgia to the Spirit. Like it wasn't necessarily that the talent was better, but like just from a mental aspect of everything, I just didn't have it, like I don't know if it was like I just didn't want to do it. I just didn't have the drive to do it. I just wonder kind of both from a mental aspect and from a technical standpoint, what you thought about the jump from such a high elite program like Stanford to the pros.
Yeah, I feel really grateful. I just love Stanford. I can't speak highly enough about it, but look at the national team now. Like it's Stanford's taking over. And so from that circumstance, I feel like technically like it wasn't a massive jump for me. I think the biggest jump for me was the physical side, and that okay, in college you're competing with girls maybe 4 years older than you, 5 years, and then you jump to the pros and you're like, oh, these girls are 10, 15 years older than me. They just have, and maybe not even that much of a jump, but the difference is at school you're still a student and you're playing soccer. Well, then you transition over and your career and livelihood is soccer, which is so great, but that means you're dedicating everything to your game. And I think that was being a mature pro was a little bit of a transition for me and a jump in that I think we would lift at in the mornings or whatnot, but lifting and having this team outside of your team and whatnot, I hadn't ever really been exposed to that, and so that was a big jump. And then learning how to navigate it, I think what was helpful was how supportive everyone on the Spirit was to me, and bringing me in and bringing me to that level. And so I failed probably more than I had failed ever in my life, but they were able to pick me up, and so I was able to get to the level I needed to be a lot faster. What else was I going to say about that? I think maybe that was the key. I had something else, but I can't really remember it. It was a great learning period though. Yeah. And then what was cool is to learn that, then to start applying that into my life and off season or whatnot. What am I doing to prepare and to become more mature and more professional? And then now there's all these rookies coming in. And so one of my best friends from Stanford, she just came in this last year. I was like, here, let me give you these fast, fun facts. Here, let me bring you up to speed right away so you're used to it. And so just kind of helping everyone now as we navigate it, just I received that same support.
No, that was totally what Gabby and I were talking about, how it's just there comes a point where you've got to be real with yourself, and it's you either want to do it or you don't. And you have to be able, you're talking about, even the off season, it's awesome to take a break, but everything at some point has to either be a decision to make soccer my life and my career, or you're taking a step back from it. And sometimes it's hard to come to that realization, I feel for younger players or not mature pros, like you just said.
Definitely.
So going back to Stanford now, your glory days, you love the place. It seems like every female player, at least that we have on this podcast, has won a national championship. We've got Florida State, we've got a USC national champion, we've got a UNC national champion. and you obviously won a national championship at Stanford as well. So what was that kind of like the on the field part of it as well? And then also during that same time, the boys, but they win 3 national championships in a row. So,
yeah.
so it's like I during that same time period. Yeah. So what was that like? I can only imagine.
I mean, put simply, it's pretty awesome, but let's see if I can break that down a little more. I mean, all 4 years were so great. Our team had been ranked high, I think we maybe underperformed for a couple of those years, but it was just so awesome to kind of hold that trophy at the end of my junior year, because I mean, I don't know how many D1 teams there are, but everyone's going after one trophy. Only one team's going to win. So to be that team at the end of it all was so special. For our team specifically, I mean, we were so close on and off the field. And we actually we played Florida State in I think it was our quarterfinal game. And my best friend, Michelle Zhao, she was playing left back because Tegan, another member of Mob, she had like been hurt or whatnot. So Mish was typically a left forward. She was playing left back. It was like the very first play of the game. And Mish got tabletopped going up for a header, and she fell and had a compound fracture on her forearm. And it was just like, it was like Harry Potter. It was really bad. And not only am I like squeamish as is when it comes to anything like that, but it's my best friend. And I was like, and so she like had to go straight to the hospital. She ended up having surgery and a lot of secondary things because of that. But in that game, it was cool to see how we all came together. Carly Massey's right-footed, goes in left back out of nowhere and just crushes it in that game. And I think everyone's like, it's your person, that's your best friend, like you're gonna score, you have to. But I'm like, I don't care who scores, we just gotta win this game for her. And so ended up, I think it was like end of the game, T made this crazy run, and then I was like in the box, she passed it to me, we scored, we won the game. And like we're all like, yay. I get back, Michelle's calling me like in the hospital bed, she's crying from pain, she's like, yay. I'm like, dude, what? But it was so cool. And so that was the quarterfinal game. Because of her surgeries and whatnot, she actually wasn't able to come to the Final Four with us, which was really sad. And I mean, it's everyone's dream to go play. And so for her, she'd been such a key part of our team to not be able to be there for us. I think that like kind of let an extra fire under our butts as a team and brought us even closer. We're like, we're going to do this for Michelle. So we actually had this like cut out fat face of her that we took with us, which was so funny. And she, like, before I left, I'd visit her in the hospital and she was like, Jordan, you got to score a goal for me. I was like, okay, me, like, I'll try, you know. I was like, okay. She's like, if you do, like, you got to hold up the five, because she was number 5. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. But fast forward in our semifinal game, we were playing South Carolina, and like I have very few header goals, and this ball like came out, Tegan played this great ball in, and I had this like diving header goal and it went in. I was like, oh my gosh, like that was Michelle or something. And so my hand like shot up and she was so excited, and it was special to be able to do that for her and to put a smile on her face. And then once we won, fast forward, we come home and to be able to celebrate with her with everything that she had gone through. It was like a really cool, awesome memory. And then a week later, as a team, we're national championships, watching the men's team win their national championship was a really cool memory.
You have any good stories of any college rivalries where you had, once you got to the Spirit, you had to kind of bury the hatchet because now you're teammates?
Oh, this is funny. Okay, so this is like a little off. We had some UCLA girls, but we're like, we don't really mind. We'd beaten them every year. So they were more like shit about us than we were about them. I was like, I didn't even realize. But I was salty. So our senior year, we lost to Florida State in the semifinals. And that was like my last game wearing Stanford uniform, like obviously upsetting. But they were a great team. They won it all. Awesome for them. So then fast forward, Shayna Matthews is on our team. She played at Florida State, and like we would have these themed Fridays. and Sam and I would just make up random stuff because we were bored and wanted to do something fun. And so one day we're like college day, because Sam went to Stab. She went to Clemson, and she is like everything bright orange. She's like, I'm wearing my sweatsuit. I was like, you go. So we like show up, and Shayna Matthews comes, and she's like right in my face, and I don't really process it. I'm like, hi, like it's early. And then she goes, and she keeps going like that to me, and I read it, and it's like 2019 national champions, Florida State, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And this is like maybe like 5 months after after our tournament.
Still fresh.
Yeah, still fresh. I'm like, oh, but it was hilarious. And so then Dorian Bailey, she played at UNC. They lost to them in the finals. Dora and I are like, oh. So Dora and I are like, hey, we're going to sprint back to the locker room after training and get her shirt and hide it. And so we like did it. We sprinted back and we like hid it in the like by the toilet or something. Something really random, which is hilarious. And it was a fun memory. But yeah, that was like the most kind of like joking, funny, but there wasn't anything as far as like, oh, we have to work through stuff.
Usually whenever I've seen it, it kind of gets squashed pretty quick.
Yeah.
That's actually funny, because at the Triumph, we had 3 guys who all lost in the national championship. So one day what we did is we had like on our TV in the locker room, we put the highlights one after another of Georgetown losing, then of Clemson losing, and then of Wake Forest was the 3rd team. And we put the highlights of all 3 of their national finals up, and they had to sit and watch it.
That is just mean.
So mean.
Unlucky guys. But we actually had on the 2018 Florida State team, we had a girl who was on the team, Malia Berkeley, recently. So you guys must have played against each other.
Great. Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah. So we're bringing people together through the podcast.
Yeah.
old wounds, old rivalries. We're doing it all.
Who's got the next question?
Sure, I'll go for it. So after we lost her. Oh, there you go.
And we're back. I tried to change the lighting.
So as we go forward now, after your injury, recovering from it soon, as Dave has said, by the time we start playing in 2021, you'll be all healthy and ready to go. What are your goals for the next few years, both in terms of the Spirit and in terms of maybe national team call-ups or playing abroad or anything along those lines?
Yeah. I mean, I want to continue to develop and to get better. I don't feel like I've reached my ceiling, so I'm excited about that. With the Spirit, I want to win NWSL championship. Wow, you're making me relive the glory days. I'm off. Yeah, NWSL championship. And then obviously I want to be on the full team. So doing everything I can to give myself those opportunities and those chances with them.
My last question really is, what would that next step look like? Obviously getting healthy, but what are kind of some practical like first and second steps for you to reach some of those?
Yeah. That's a good question. I feel like I'm like right now, just with PT and whatnot, I feel like I'm kind of like, okay, I don't want to like think too far ahead. I need to take it day by day, because sometimes I have good days of PT and sometimes I have bad. I'm like, I just need to stay steady. But let me just brainstorm. I haven't made anything. I've been more of like short-term goals person right now. I'm just trying to get my like quad muscles back as is, but maybe do 150 passes against the wall next week. But let's see. I think probably big goals for me would be like as a midfielder and as an attacking midfielder, kind of like key chances and creating for my team, scoring goals, getting assists. I think those would probably be good benchmarks. Maybe I know we have like a lot more technology, so then like looking at pass accuracy or like direction of passes or whatnot. I think that like fitness will be a big thing for me as I come back, just because I've been out for so long. And then obviously there's like I think once you get to like these kind of goals, like a big piece of it is the mentality and like your confidence. And so just continuing to work on that. I think I get a lot of confidence when I feel prepared. And so I'm just kind of trusting in the process, and that like I have this awesome team that's helping me rehab right now, and that I'm going to be prepared when the time comes for me to be taking these jumps and playing again and whatnot.
So what I was curious about was the national team, your experience with the national team camp, and, obviously something, I think everybody's looking and expecting to see you, most, good likelihood that you'll be back in the national team camp at some point, hopefully very soon, but just your experience that you had with it last year, what you thought of it. It's been kind of a running theme we've had on the show, and just the level is just so high.
Yeah, I loved it. I hope to be back there soon. I had such a great experience. I think it was really cool to just kind of see on the field, off the field, how the players present and hold themselves accountable and whatnot. I think something that like really I jumped on and I thought, oh, I want to bring this back to the Spirit was kind of like the intensity of trainings, and that in Rondo, they're like laughing and whatnot, having fun, but the quality is insane, right? Like they're good players, and they're not making, they're making people look silly, and you don't want to be that person that's being made look silly. But they're having a good time, which is cool. And to be able to do that and still have a high quality, and then to jump forward, like when official training starting, it's like a light is switched, right? Like intensity is big time. Like players are sliding, they're getting after it, they're going into hard tackles, they're pushing each other, and more than anything, that like not only increases the level, but it makes each player better. And at the end of the day, I was like, wow, and like joking with someone, I was like, wow, like their hardest competition is each other. Like come the actual game, it's easy for them, man. Which half joke, there's awesome teams out there. That's not the case, but I mean the quality is high, and that was awesome. And that's something that I was excited to bring back to the Spirit. I thought that we did a pretty good job given circumstances when we were able to train, and that's something that I'm gonna maybe pride myself or be a goal of mine as I start to progress in my soccer, given the protocol, rehab, whatnot.
Well, that's a really interesting point you bring up about the training being harder than the game. Something like that's such a hallmark of a top elite level team. Even going back to the days of maybe at Barcelona, with the men, and Manchester United with Sir Alex Ferguson. That was a real hallmark of those teams. Was the training was just so competitive, and it just gives you it's a good interesting point. So,
just touching on what we mentioned, kind of in your question 2 questions ago, with all the increased technology that we have now, with like pass accuracy, and you can track how far you run, you GPS on you, all that different stuff. I'd be curious to see from your perspective, is there something that with the national team or with the Spirit that is really tracked, whether it's in a training or in a game, that you think is really useful and helpful? And then also, is there something that you think is like coaches bring up and it's like, this has nothing to do with who's a good player and who's not? Because I actually have one, and my thing is I hate pass accuracy. Because
I think, yeah,
because
I have a love-hate relationship with it, because sometimes I'm like, people are so worried about it, they're passing this like 2-yard pass, absolutely screwing their neighbor, when they should be making this other like dangerous, taking a risk. But I think what is good about the pass accuracy is that you can kind of like hold yourself accountable. I think it's like the fine line of not putting too much stress on it or whatnot. I think like more so what I like to look at is like the direction of my passes and what my accuracy is, like given where I'm at in the field or whatnot. So like if I'm playing a ball backwards or square, like I would expect that to be connected. And then maybe when I'm taking those more riskier kind of like a movie star or whatnot passes, like to create key chances, well, then that's hit or miss. Like you got to take a risk in order to get the success. I think that like something I know carries over from both teams a lot is the like kind of like more physical side of the technology. So like high intensity running, sprints, cutting, like overall load, whatnot. And I think that's been like really helpful. That's something that's gonna be really important for me as I come back, that like, yeah, I'm healthy, but I'm someone that's gonna like push myself too far. Like, no, I need to like make sure I'm staying within these metrics so that I'm not just like getting healthy, getting hurt again. Like, I want to get healthy and then just continue to go. I think like for me, the technical side, again, like at Stanford, we didn't really use that kind of technology for like passes and whatnot. And I know when I first came to the Spirit and they're sending me like my pass accuracy, I'd be like, I stink at soccer. Like, oh my gosh, what the heck? And it like kind of messed with my confidence for a little bit. And it had to be me like stepping back and like rationalizing like, okay, well, you got to take a risk at some point, you know, like, yeah, it's important, but you also need to recognize like, if you're going to create a chance or whatnot, you have to take some sort of risk. It's not going to be like teams are too good to be able to just like pass square or whatnot and expect to score off of that.
Yeah, that's something that actually John brought up this year at one point, Marion. He was like, I don't want Instat players. And I don't know if you guys use Instat, but it's just like it's like a Y Scout. It's a type of database that you use to track players. And you didn't want Instat players because Instat, your rating goes higher if you complete a lot of those like 5-yard passes, then you don't even need to go back and forth. But I mean, it's interesting. I mean, the data is cool. It's really cool. And I think it definitely benefits the game, but I think
you have to break it down a little further at like surface level. You're like, okay, this doesn't really mean anything. Break it down for it to then be a more like productive and like helpful kind of tool for you in your game.
Exactly.
All right, I think we need to let Jordan get back to her PT.
Yeah. It was great chatting with you guys. Thanks. Sorry, thanks for being patient. Sorry, it's a little late.
No worries at all.
Good to see you again, Jordan.
Thank you so much.
It's good to see you again.
Until next time, Dave and Mary.
Well, actually, I was just going to say until next time, I'm wondering if when we do the Pele interview, if he's going to recognize Marion too or not, you know?
Pele, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, he's played against a lot of players over his years. So.
I remember you from the team of Brazil. Marion, what are you doing in Brazil?
On a beach, probably.
Yeah, not playing soccer, that's for sure.
Until next time, I'm the athlete.
I'm the advocate.
I'm the analyst.
And we are the Aristocrats.
The Aristocrats.